And my name is Mariana Oleskiv. I am the Director of Tourism at Capital European Affairs, is a Brussels-based consultancy organization. And before that, for 5 years, I was chair of Ukrainian Tourism Authority, State Agency for Tourism Development of Ukraine, worked for a few tourism boards in Ukraine, including Lviv and Odessa. So today we will speak about mostly coastal areas, and I know how much tourism is important for them, not only for just being ports, but also being destinations, and many people depend on it. So how to make it sustainable, how to make it work, we will discuss today with these great speakers from business and, of course, policymakers, which is very important to balance the views. I will change my seat to a more comfortable one, even though that looks more serious, but let me stay here. So talking about rural areas, so less crowded areas, actually, because I come from Ukraine, I see that it's not only the matter of sustainability, but also of resilience and better preparedness as the density populated cities become a trap in the circumstances that we observe in the past years. COVID, that I think was the first bad example, but something that opened for people those less crowded areas. Now, during the war in Ukraine, of course, where people find peace, at least a little bit of it, those are somewhere outside the cities. So sharing the information that you just told us, what do you think, George, about is EU doing enough here to actually develop the rural areas and tourism in less crowded ones? Or are there any additional policies you think shall be there? So it's not just that we talk and nice words, but action that will make those areas better connected, better, possible for investment, attractive for investment.
Well, I hope, yeah, okay. I mean, first of all, thanks for the question, and yeah, I'm kicking off the panel discussion as well. A few things here. I think an initial point that we need to take into consideration is its perception, right? The fact that there is a market shift, that there is a tendency towards more rural destinations, ecotourism, some of the statistics that I mentioned earlier, because obviously grasping the reality on the ground matters when we talk about these issues at the political or regulatory level. So this is very important to understand that there are some underlying market trends taking place. Now, when it comes to the infrastructure, it is obviously important to have some key levers in place. Digital connectivity, but also physical connectivity is important for people to be able to move out from some of the most iconic destinations and towards destinations where, that still deserve to be explored and are not necessarily being explored as we speak. And as far as we are concerned, when we talk about infrastructure, I would like to double down on a point that I mentioned earlier, that we see, our hosts as providing part of this kind of important infrastructure that you were asking for, right? Houses are bigger in rural areas. They have more space. People are renting out as a secondary activity, and so on and so forth. And last point I would like to mention is, as I've said earlier, in many of these areas, we do not have the hotel infrastructure to make sure that we can have these guests visiting these places. So these are a few pointers that I would like to highlight.
Thank you. Nadia, at Booking.com, of course, you see a lot because you have not only short-term rentals, but basically all types of accommodation. Do you see in the user's behavior, is it just we want, like, is it really that people try to search for something outside of the most crowded areas, or it's just a trend that people talk about, but in real life, everybody's still searching for Rome, Paris, and Amsterdam. I mean, we don't mean that people do not need to search for it, but like, is they actually search for the less crowded and rural and not so dense destinations is a trend.
Thanks, Mariana. And just to say thank you as well for having me as part of this panel. It's a pleasure to be here. Indeed, like you've mentioned, that there's a lot of iconic destinations in Europe. If we think of Paris and the Eiffel Tower, if we think of Venice, or if we think of Santorini in Greece, of course, these are places that will always attract a lot of visitors. And after all, Europe is the #1 destination in the world, and it's something that we should be proud of. Now, yes, we do see that there is a shift, and we see that more and more people are actually, when we look deeper into what they are looking for, we see that they are looking for. There is a shift towards less busy destinations and alternative destinations. Now, we see this, that it's a meaningful and growing trend, but it has not yet flipped into the destination mix. So we still see that if you have never been to France and you end up going there, you will want to go to Paris and you will want to visit the Eiffel Tower. And it's an impressive landmark. I think it's worth visiting. Now, when we do our own research, we do see that this shift is growing, and it's actually in 2025. It's the first year that we see that the majority of travelers that we have done this survey around consumer attitudes towards sustainability, they are becoming more and more conscious of their impact on local communities and the environment as well. So 4 out of 10 travelers in 2025, they were actually looking for alternative destinations and factoring in crowds in their decision making, also considering adjusting the times that they were visiting, and alternative destinations also during peak periods. So we do see that the shift is happening, and there are also some behavioral signals that also testify to this. In our data, we see that 44% of people who are visiting less known destinations are actually hesitant to tag those destinations in social media so that they don't become as popular.
There are some destinations that ask, don't share information about us. It's like, I know one place, it's very nice, but I will not tell you which one is that. That happens sometimes, really, because the balance is very important to find, because of course people want to visit some less crowded destinations, but at the end they are like, I don't want more people to go there.
It's something that we have seen in our data, but also we have to consider that the world is changing as well, and there is a lot of AI coming into play and changing the way that people are thinking and booking their travel. So also we see an increasing trend, and more people using AI tools to find those lesser known destinations and travel somewhere that it's not as crowded. So as we see that there is this shift towards a more experience economy, we do see that Europe has the opportunity there to lead in terms of high value segments such as value-based tourism, cultural festivals or outdoor activities, and this will bring nurturing those segments will actually bring more opportunities for those local communities, but also disperse tourism. And we're really looking forward to see the Commission's sustainable tourism strategy, because we feel that there is a lot of discussions that we need to have there, and to bring all the stakeholders together in a multi-level effort to see what we can do to actually deliver that potential of European tourism and the competitiveness of the sector, which has clearly a lot to offer in terms of jobs, in terms of growth, and in terms of competitiveness as a whole.
Yes, it will be not an easy job to balance all the needs of different stakeholders, but we will move a little bit later to the policymaking part. Dirk, I wanted also to ask you about following them. You know, cruise lines are always seen as something that the tourists from the cruise lines are quite visible in port cities, and sometimes you are blamed for a lot of things. I mean, all the tourism industry is being blamed for for a lot of troubles that people have. But how do you think? But there are again, there are a lot of very nice examples of the port cities of the destination that manage those flows properly in geographically and both geographically and seasonally. So can you tell us a few examples of such measures, such regulations on the destinations or country levels, and what EU could do here so that we have more of such examples to share when we meet here again next year?
Thank you, Mariana. I'm a friend of facts, and even in cities like Barcelona, cruise guests represent less than 5% of the guests. You are completely right. They are the visible part. If you want to see people coming, you can say, well, that's a cruise ship, and that's absolutely
They don't
right.
mask like locals, no?
Yeah, I think the interesting part is if you see tourism. So first of all, as a cruise ship, we don't appear suddenly in a harbor. So that's itinerary planning with a harbor and port is done 3 to 5 years in advance. So that's never surprisingly. And besides that, there are some places like Barcelona, maybe Venice, where we don't go as AIDA for many, many years too. So we see on the opposite side something very different. So we developed, for example, from the German market, the Nordics as a whole year destination. So we go there if all the other tourists disappear. So we go there in the winter time. And for example, in Oslo, we were the last vessel which appeared in the port. It was December 31, and we are the next day with a new vessel, the first ship in 2026 on January 1st. And these are very important elements in having a longer season, for example, and we go to places not only like Oslo, but Nordfjord, very small neighborhoods where you would consider, like George mentioned, rural tourism, where we bring guests all over the year using the museums, cafes, and so on. So the question is how to organize passenger flows. And we always have our hotel beds with us, so we don't are in a competition for apartments or hotel beds and so on. So there are some important points in that element.
Thank you. And now we'll move to the policy making part. And I know, I mean, I've been on the both sides of the field, and I know it's not always easy to balance interest of many stakeholders. Now, especially in tourism sector, because I think it's one probably of the most cross-sectoral ones, and it really means a lot how all different authorities coordinate their efforts, how they work together or work against each other or blame each other. So will the tourism strategy, new sustainable tourism strategy, be something that will, be the solution? And what are your thoughts here? How do you see the process going? Some insights, news you can share with us today.
Yes, thank you. So for those who are not aware, in May, the European Commission will publish an European Sustainable Tourism Strategy in parallel to other strategies that were mentioned already today, like the port strategy. There is also the the maritime industry strategy, also the coastal and islands community strategy. So the Commission is taking a lot of strategic approach. I would like to reduce a bit the expectations on this strategy because I don't think we will come up with shocking novelties the diagnosis of the sector
Why?
is already widespread. I think more or less
kidding.
we are discussing, more or less we are aware of the challenges, opportunities, what is more or less the way to go forward. We are affected by challenges like seasonality, concentration, unbalanced tourism, but also the lack of skills, lack of digitalization, of data, and the competition from other markets, because we still want at the European level to tourism to grow, but we want to do it in a better, more balanced way. So about the strategy, I cannot yet unveil what will be there. But as I said, probably those stakeholders or people already involved in discussions won't be much surprised. And if someone at the end of the day is missing something in the list, this is a document for political priorities. It doesn't mean that other things are not important, but of course we have to focus our action or our guidelines on some points, because at the end of the day, the European Union has no direct competencies on tourism. It has many indirect. For example, short-term rentals are not regulated as tourism policy, but as other types of policy. So indeed, we have tools.
That is the issue, because again, the member states regulate a lot of things, and I think most of the directives or regulations at the EU level are not within the Tron committee competence, but different other committees, while again, you are mostly working with that committee as the main one. So yeah, I think it's like the strategy is a very challenging document.
So indeed, we have to coordinate first within the institutions, and then you said there's member state competencies, but in most of the cases for tourism, it's regional or even local. So what we would like to do with our strategy is to give destinations the tools to better manage their specific concerns that they have.
Thank you. So coming back a little bit to regulations, but also to, in general, the idea of Airbnb, I was also attending last week a Destination Brand Europe workshop, and moderator there mentioned actually Airbnb brand as when it was launched, that the idea it has, and it has still has, about, opening destinations from the locals' perspective. So, people can ask their hosts like how to better mask as local, as I said, that so that nobody will throw, tomatoes or eggs on you or something in some of the destinations. But in general, to engage more with community. So recently, and this is what we were all talking about. So basically, some of the examples we can say that people rent their homes somewhere in very central places, but at the same time, they rent them out in less populated areas, other districts where you can again better engage and understand the community. How do you see currently EU regulation framework works in the way to actually better regulate and help those undeveloped or less developed destinations to have tourism there, or is more works against it? So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, taking a step back, coming back to a point that you actually mentioned, obviously this is a kind of cross-cutting area, and we do see rules from different policy areas applying, right? I mean, as far as we are concerned, short-term rentals are not necessarily exclusively within the remit of tourism. And as you know, we are expecting a new initiative by the European Commission on housing, which potentially can also, yet again, come back to short-term rentals and actually add an additional layer to the existing regulation, knowing also that the short-term rental rules will effectively apply in May this year. Yeah, I mean, there is this kind of challenging that we do see in other industries, and that many economic sectors complain to the European Commission for that. taking a step back from this and coming to what we are doing and what is the DNA of Airbnb, you might have heard that we have rolled out a new service, which is experiences. And again, it very much connects to what you have described. So people are not going to a hotel and they're going to Airbnb for a reason. You connect with your host in many instances, in most instances. You ask for some tips, you go out, and then this new services of experience that I've mentioned will connect you even more so to the local economy. If you're looking for a local craftsman and so on and so forth. I think a very interesting data point that I saw and really I found it extremely useful is that for every €1 that is spent on STR, short-term rentals, this brings back to the community, to the local communities, 2.5 euros. And I think this is what actually drives value and growth for local economies, be it in more populated or even more so in less populated areas.
Thank you. About this behavior, because of course people again want to see some landmarks, but still I think it's a part of the destination work with main stakeholders, with businesses, to a little bit spread those flows. So I don't know, if you want to see Eiffel Tower, of course you can do that, but can you also stay a little bit longer in the area, see more destinations around, or stay maybe outside the city, which will be maybe even cheaper at certain moment, but also more convenient for you and not that crowd and loud there, and will be of course more comfortable for local citizens. So what do you think, Nadia, from yours booking.com perspective, about shaping that behavior? Mostly the destinations do that and business kind of follows trends, or can business also influence it? Can you somehow shape that behavior? Do you do anything in that those regards?
So it's true that not one single actor can actually tackle this challenge alone. So it requires the commitment and the collaboration from all the relevant stakeholders, from the national tourism organizations and governments, to local municipalities, to local residents, to local businesses, and also the travel and tech companies who can also contribute. And there is really no quick fix to help relieve the destinations that are feeling those pressures. Everyone has a role to play. And as Booking.com, what we do is really that we believe that platforms do disperse tourism across locations and also across seasons. What I mean by that, we see that one of the main strengths of our platform is that we make visible to travelers a lot of different options outside of those most popular and busiest tourism locations to explore in an easier way. So Europe is very, very diverse in terms of the accommodations, and the majority of those are actually small and independent hotels. And many of those are not necessarily in an urban hotspot or the most popular region in a country. They're actually located outside of those most popular areas in less busy locations. So by listing on online travel platforms like Booking.com, they can actually make themselves visible to those travelers that are actually looking online for destinations that are less busy and not as crowded. So, and when we look into the numbers, we see that offline, when someone is looking for an accommodation, the ratio between urban and rural accommodations is 5:1. So for every 5 urban accommodations, you have 1 rural accommodation. When people are looking for accommodations online, we see this ratio dropping to 1.5:1. So for almost every urban accommodation, you also have 1 rural one. And this is very important because it shows the potential that the online channels have to spread tourism across locations and also across the seasons. Because what we see when we are talking to our partners is that they use tools like Booking.com to actually spread tourism across the year in a more even way. So they are trying to address seasonality by listing on Booking.com when it actually makes more sense for them to increase their occupancy in low season. So this is one of the ways that we see ourselves contributing to this challenge. But it's not just that. The work that we do to help our partners get closer to becoming certified, sustainability certified, that's also another important way that we're trying to alleviate the problem, because especially for those most popular locations, it's important to increase their level of sustainability. And this is also an important notion. And of course, we support a lot of actions by the national tourism organizations and work with them to offer insights, and we often do joint campaigns with them to help them manage tourism flows. And of course, frameworks like the EU STR regulation is an important one that helps authorities get the right data on an evidence-based and proportional approach, and see whether and what makes sense, what the measures actually make sense. So we are really looking forward to the implementation of this regulation, which is actually coming in force in May. And we really think that it's one of those that we will need to implement first, because actually looking into whether there is additional gaps that need to be addressed through new legislation.
And what, I mean, if you have this information about the member states, how fast they move their, is it digital? Do they have challenges with it? Because I know that, for example, Croatia has a great system of registration of all hotels and all accommodations. So I think Hungary too. So for them, probably will be quite easy. But I think at least a couple of years ago, Austria was still dealing with kind of half paper type of data collection. How fast they move member states, if anyone knows about this, if you could share.
Would you like to take this one?
I'm not sure now at particular examples, and I don't want to point at those who are late to say it somehow. But for example, there's already one member state who already started the implementation of the ST regulation. I know it's a bit controversial, because Spain already started applying it in 2025, and they also had their own decrees requiring more data than those requested by the regulation, and this is creating some issues I don't want to develop, but probably our colleagues they know about it. So some countries are faster than others, clearly, even too fast.
And faster doesn't always mean better. I think, I don't know, because in general, the idea is great, from my opinion, but you need to create some kind of tool that will be convenient for everyone. And then if you want to make those regulations or STRs less commercialized, which I hear from many policymakers, is important to have an easy access for actually hosts to register their apartment, their house. So yeah, that's an interesting thing. Maybe if someone has more to add here.
Yes, I have the mic. I don't know about how access will be the tools for each member state, because they have the freedom to establish their own registration tools, even at the regional level. But I can tell you that already Eurostat with the National Statistical Institute are working on the interoperability and transmission of the data. So we will have the aggregates at the European level and so in a comparable way, which is a quite technical work. I can assure you that they are already working on that.
Great. If nothing to add here, do you have something to add, Nadia, George?
I mean, yeah, as I was saying, I mean, implementation can be challenging, and we have seen that there is exactly what you were saying before, that there is some fragmentation. I don't know whether fragmentation is the right word, but STRs and tourism is very local, but at the same time global. So especially on STRs, we see that there is so many rules that are changing, even on a city by city basis. So I think that this is also adding to the challenge, and we have seen that there is divergent implementation of how member states are trying to implement the EU STR regulation, which is also causing challenges for the platforms that then need to work with that. So it's very important. Like on our side, we really think that it is the right tool to regulate short-term rentals. It's proportionate, it's balanced, and the implementation needs to be consistent. So I'll just leave it at that. I'm happy to continue.
Thank you. So I will move back to the type of our industry that has bets with themselves, as you were saying, Dirk. So again, the cruises have some influence on climate, of course. Again, I was at one event last year. I think the CEO of Booking.com was saying that we're still living in one planet where, you know, our influence on climate change comparing to other things happening like in Ukraine, which is what 1,500 kilometers away. Tons of diesel are being burned these days because we have no electricity, no heating, and you know, that's the only way for people to survive. But still, even in Ukraine, some destinations that are, you know, less influenced by war, people are thinking about sustainability. So recently, one of ski resorts, they opened their sustainable development office in the resort. So again, somehow we try to leave this planet livable for the next generations, even though in the part of it is like a complete disaster. So, but talking about climate and influence of that on that, the cruise lines, what do you think are the main problems there? Is it fuels? Is it ports? Is it regulations? And what not only business can do there, but what help would you require from on the EU level and governments?
Well, first of all major cruise lines have committed themselves to the 2050 goals of net zero emissions, and we have done tremendous progress over the past 20 years. For example, we improved our energy efficiency by 50%, and that's technology driven, that's driven by having smarter itineraries, that's also driven by using new technologies like shore power, which we invested in for the first time in 2004, and the first shore power facility in a European harbor was 2017, so there was a lot of way to go. Until today we have around 20 ports which could offer shore power, and at every port we go with an AIDA cruise ship. We use shore power, of course, and that developed over the past years in a very good way. So we started in 2023, for example, with around 70 shore power usages, and last year, 2025, it was around 480, and we expect to have this year 600. So that's one small portion of it. If we look into the field of regulation, we see that there are a lot of regulations coming from the international level, like IMO, and we have the regulations from the European institutions like Fuel EU Maritime, which forces us to use alternative fuels, which is a good idea, and we are part of that development. We have the European trade scheme where we have to pay for our emissions. That's also okay. What we see currently is that not all the revenues which are generated from ETS go back to the maritime sector, but that is our clear expectation on the European level, but as well on the national level, where parts of these revenues will be allocated, and that's a very important point. If you look a little bit on the longer view, on the fuel side, for example, we have to see that there will be an increasing demand for alternative fuels. Currently, we are using biofuels, but as we all know, that can only be a bridge into the next decade. That's not a long-term solution. So we need on the longer term e-fuels, and we see that there is a demand from the regulatory side, like FuelEU Maritime. But what we don't see currently is a market ramp up and on an industrial scale and level, and that's really heavily needed, not only having a regulation, but also building a market ramp up. And that is what we expect from the government side, as aviation and the maritime sector will depend on liquid fuels for a longer period, even until the 2040 years.
Thank you. It's really, recently a lot of, I think, we talk on the European level about two things: is sustainability and climate change, and preserving planet for next generations, but also competitiveness. Because again, good news is that Europe in tourism is #1 destination, but it's important with all the regulations, with all things that needs to be done, of course, from the policy making perspective, to still leave that competitiveness as a main pillar, I think. And Bruno, can you tell us what do you think, based on this discussion, is the most difficult to kind of balance this? To make tourism greener, but at the same time still competitive to other world destinations that are developing and investing a lot in tourism, and maybe not always think too much about sustainability.
When we talk about sustainability in tourism, it's not just environmental sustainability, but also social, as we were discussing, the acceptance of the residents, and also economic, because in mid-term, long-term, some of the investments may not pay off, and tourism might be killed by its own success in some of the destinations. So we believe in the European Commission, and this is not just exclusive of tourism, it's embedded in all the policies, that competitiveness and sustainability should go hand by hand, although at short term and in specific business, in specific situations, there can be a trade-off and a conflict. But the long-term view, we still believe, and I think most of our stakeholders believe, that in the specific case of tourism, one strong point of European tourism is also the way it can be sold as a sustainable tourism, as greener than in other places, because maybe there is a shift, or we hope that this data that were shared about travelers becoming more conscious, we hope this is true, and they will be choosing greener destinations which take care of themselves, because maybe this is a cultural shift. But it's difficult to, there is a gap between the surveys. Everybody wants to travel green, and then, of course, the price is a factor. So we have to work on that gap. We are running a campaign, promotional campaign to visit Europe called Unlock an Unexpected Upgrade, which means that when you are traveling off-season or to different destinations, or doing activities which are not so obvious even in a big capital, your experience can be upgraded. You can have a better experience, and this is a good selling point, I believe, for competitiveness. But also we have to convince the business. We have to convince them that greening their practices will pay off at the mid-term, long-term, but also short-term, because short-term they will only see the investment. So of course we are trying to convince them with the narrative, with political leadership, and giving them the tools, digital tools, simplifying the procedures, and of course with access to funding and other incentives.
Oh, thank you. And here I just thought about also one thing, AI, that actually people ask AI very different questions. And of course they ask about travel. And one of my friends, who's a very famous travel blogger in Ukraine, but also they made this program where like was quite popular in the old post-Soviet Union area, where they would travel. One would go to one destination, one with unlimited card and another with €100 bill. So how they discovered this destination. And he asked AI recently, like, can you tell me 5 hidden gems in Ukraine where I should travel, like some very unique destinations? And out of 5, only 1 was actually unique. The other 4 were quite popular ones. And the ones that basically, so that's my another question. So the ones that were first those hidden gems, which were very nice and not so crowded, and everybody liked it because it was sustainable. But then tourists started going there, and they started moving not in a very right direction in the way they develop the destination. So it start losing that part that is attractive. So my 2 questions are, and feel free to answer who thinks can, like, AI, how can we train AI to kind of tell the hidden? So it's actually when something becomes popular, then it's given by AI. Is there anything can be done there, or just let's see where it goes? And the second question is how to work with the destination. Is it also a part maybe in the strategy, or you have ideas? How do they have some tools when they are yet those hidden gems or very nice, not crowded destinations, not to see in 2-3 years citizens with the posters, tourists go away? So my question is for everybody who feels like answering. Any thoughts?
I have some thoughts. I'm not an expert on AI, so I won't address that point. But I would like to clarify that the most popular destinations doesn't mean that the destination, just because it's popular, is not sustainable.
I know, but there's some that are popular and sustainable, but some are still sustainable, but more tourists, but not ready for that.
Yeah,
That's
so
what I mean.
your question, because today we're discussing coastal and blue economy, and coastal regions are actually those who have the highest seasonality rates in Europe. Sometimes they are overcrowded in summer and empty in winter, and that's a problem also for the local economy. Last year, we awarded the Green Pioneer Award for smart destinations to Benidorm. I'm Spanish myself, so we all know in Spain that Benidorm is a very popular destination, but they managed to attract tourists as well, senior tourists or coming from the silver economy, also during winter. Of course, they have other kind of green measures, so we're promoting this example. And then coming back to the artificial intelligence, probably I lost the plot, so probably my colleagues have something to add.
Do you want something to add or no? AI, no?
So, as I said before, I do think that there is a lot of opportunity with AI, and not necessarily on the negative aspects that you were having in mind. I really think that it can bring a lot of benefits in terms of dispersing tourism. And not just AI, also you mentioned your friends and the influencers. People actually these days with the influencers, with the online content creators, with AI, with all these development of digital tools, there is a different way that you start to experience a destination. The steer towards a destination starts way earlier than traditionally. So let's say traditionally you would go on booking.com once you have more or less a destination fixed in your mind. Now this steer can come way earlier with AI. You can set a prompt like, I want to visit a sunny destination that is not crowded, and there you have different responses. So I don't think that there is a need to replace one tourist model over another. The thing is that there can be an expanded European offer, which can be also created by these opportunities with AI and digital content creators. So and about training those AI models, we haven't seen half of it yet. It's really the beginning of everything that's happening. AI is only becoming mainstream now, and Gen AI, even agentic AI, will really change the landscape. So it's really something that has a lot of opportunities, and of course will bring different challenges than the ones that we have in mind today. And there is already a lot of policy measures in place to make sure that this is developed in a responsible way. At least that's how we see it at Booking.com. So I'm really excited for what that future can bring. And definitely, I don't think that it will create more problems. I think that it will actually give us a lot of solutions as well to the problems that we are discussing today.
You're just
just very briefly. So, I mean, before jumping on the AI bandwagon, right? So, I think we need to acknowledge that there is a lack of digital skills in general, and I think many of even big communities, they lack a meaningful online presence, which obviously has several knock-on effects. If we take the example of a, let's say, small community, a strong online presence will not only attract potential visitors, but they can also inform them about the limitations that they will face there. And they can also highlight some of the hidden gems that they would like to highlight or not. And I think this is a massive miss as we speak right now. And again, before even considering the AI and the opportunities or challenges that it might bring.
Yeah, that's true. I've spoken to many small destinations which are not really seeing all the possibilities of digital skills. So yes, that maybe again AI will help them to how to improve my digital skills manual to improve that. That will be quite important. Do we have any questions from the floor from our audience? If no, I have a few more here, but maybe something about tourism, no? Everybody wants to travel or see some attractions around the city. So again, to kind of summarize this discussion, maybe each of you could share what is main thing that your organization is doing to make the sustainable tourism phrase work better, and what are your expectations from the EU policy to actually make sustainable tourism really a mainstream for everybody, and that everybody would understand it the same way? Yes, because I'm still sure that even though we talk about it a lot, not everybody actually understands it's a balance. It's not only about climate, it's about also social, it's about economic, to find that balance. So just briefly from the perspective of your organization, let's start, Nadia, with you.
So I really think that we should focus on the fact that tourism is a force for good, and it should have a positive impact on the societies, the environment, and the economies of all the destinations that we live and that we travel to. We are really looking forward to see the strategy from the Commission, and if I can just pick 3 points that would be important for us from our perspective to see in that strategy, is indeed what we have also raised in this conversation. Tourism is not an EU competence, and it's not necessarily a very clear policy at EU level. There is many different, it's cross-cutting, as you were saying, Mariana. It has a lot of different policy actions affecting the tourism stakeholders, from taxation to digital to consumer to internal market. And we really think that it's important to make sure that the tourism considerations are embedded into those policies and those activities, and we're really hoping that we see some of that thinking in the strategy. Then, of course, there is a big challenge with addressing the skills gap. indeed, like we see that there is skills lacking in basic digital and commercial skills that many people actually consider that are basic for the future of their profession. So we think that there is a lot of opportunity with online tools to also scale some of those possibilities to upskill the tourism workforce. Then there's obviously what we are discussing about simplification and the whole competitiveness agenda of the Commission, that there needs to be also a simplification also in the area of tourism and making sure that there is consistent implementation of relevant legislation, streamlining some of the obligations that we sometimes see diverging across the policy areas, but also in the implementation in member states, and also to just to make sure that there is, a clear and consistent regulatory environment for the tourism businesses to operate in. It affects from the very local SME that's receiving consumers on the ground, but also the big travel platforms like Booking.com. So it needs to be an effort that creates synergies and uses the synergies that are already existing between the small and the big. And of course, taking care of sustainability and promoting sustainable travel is very important. Making sure that we nurture more these high-value segments that can give Europe a more competitive edge in terms of destination. So I think this is from me. I'll leave it to the other speakers.
Thank you. Bruno, do you want to add now or at the end? No? Okay.
In the tourism sector is composed by many small stakeholders. 99% of the businesses in the industry are small SMEs. 95% are micro companies, and the destinations are mostly municipal entities. So they also lack the skills to manage tourism, and what we intend to do from the European Commission is to support them, because somehow they know better what is happening in the business, in the industry, but also they are lost about the whole European and global panorama and development. So we are helping them to have access to skills, to training, to data, because artificial intelligence can also work for business. So it's not just for the user who's looking for destinations, but also for the business to better manage their own systems and also the flows or the destination. They can also manage the visitor flows and the environmental direct and indirect effects. So in the European Commission, we are giving them tools, funding through different types of projects they have pilot projects. There are others who are scaling up. It's a long list. But also I would like to reverse your question. And it's not just what the European Commission can do for this destination and businesses. It's also what they can do for each other. So we're trying to create a community of small actors and give the visibility to their actions. And this is an added value that we can have at the European level with our European Tourism Day last week, with the European Tourism Platform. I invite organizations in the audience, maybe working in ports or other types of business which are indirectly linked to tourism. I invite them to submit the pledges. Every year we are receiving individual commitments from regions, municipalities, business to enhance their sustainability practices and to share it with other destination and business, because there is competition between specific destinations. One city is trying to attract the tourists and then they don't go to other city. But we believe that the whole tourism ecosystem can support each other for the European benefit.
Thank you.
I think in the end, it's all about balance. And we look into some places where at some times are many tourists, like maybe Venice, Dubrovnik, the island of Mykonos, and maybe Barcelona. But that means, on the other hand, that there are thousands of destinations which are looking for travelers and would like to come to their areas. We as cruise industry are quite experienced in organizing passenger flows. For example, if we go to Barcelona, we don't have to bring all our guests at noon to the city center to Sagrada Familia, but we offer shore excursions to more rural areas, and so allow to organize passenger flows in a smarter way, because no traveler would go to a really overcrowded area. So it's not beneficial to organize shore excursions into the city center at the most crowded times. So we organize that differently, and we understand ourselves as partner of destinations because we can organize together with many destinations the passenger flows.
Thank you.
My turn. Competitive sustainability, I'll give you my motto in the interest of time. So first, embrace how people travel today, and the most sustainable accommodation is the one that you don't have to build because it already exists.
Thank you. It was good, it's like balanced and and interesting discussion, I think. So, Bruno, you have a lot fruit for thought, and I'm sure that really everybody is looking forward to this strategy, the first of a kind on the EU level. Won't be easy because they very properly you mentioned that basically tourism is built on people that not always see the big picture, and but that big picture makes actually a difference for them. So I'm sure that with such great people working in this industry, it will show great results, and we will see a big change towards sustainability and greener practices. So thank you for our great speakers for this discussion.